All right, there you go. Good afternoon.
Hey, Jessica, how are you?
Good, how are you?
Doing well, thanks. I appreciate you signing in.
Yeah, of course.
We're just a little bit early here. I know I've got at least one person in class. And hopefully we'll have some more people join us on Zoom. So,
Perfect.
hey, Danielle. Guys, we'll get started here in about 2 minutes. If you can, go ahead and unmute yourself, and I'd love to see your face so I can interact with you with questions a little bit easier. Yeah, Oren, you're brand new with us, correct? So I may not go into as much detail as you need, but feel free to reach out to me on another day. I've got to leave here for an inspection as soon as this is over. So I may be a little bit above your head. This is really more of a question and answer type class this time around as opposed to beginner's class. So don't, if you feel lost, don't worry about it. I'll be glad to work with you. Okay, guys, welcome. We are going to go ahead and get started. Thank you so much for participating today. This is, I was just indicating, we're going to do more of a question and answer type class to make sure you guys are on the same page. Again, I'd love to see your faces, and you can feel free to go ahead and unmute yourself as long as you don't have any background noise. Because as question and answer, I'm going to just talk for 5 minutes or less, and then open it up to questions to make sure we get everybody on the same page. Does that sound like a plan?
Sounds like a plan.
Okay, awesome. Thank you. All right, so the first thing, obviously, this is your go-to. This is your command file checklist. This is the latest revision in June of this year. So again, I always recommend, I don't care how experienced you are, print this out, have the agent put it in their a paper file or at least something to make notes on. That way they can physically put a check mark when they have a document completed. They can make a note on when they've turned it in for file submission review. And they can make a note, which is very important, and when they filled out the offer and commissions tab. There's not a space for that on here. I usually just write it down so that I know I've done that. Because as we know, if you don't do the offer commissions tab in command, CC has no way to pay us. So that's really important. So that's why I still use, if nothing else, I still use this as a reference guide so that I know when I have done something as an agent. And if it's on this sheet, and applies, it needs to be turned in. Obviously, anything that is signed by the buyer and the seller, even if it's not on this sheet, should be part of your file retention and be turned in for review. And as you know, the Real Estate Commission requires all documents pertaining to a contract or a listing to be turned in to your firm within 3 business days. That is a rule that's been in place now for only a couple of years, but that is a Real Estate Commission rule. It's always been a Keller Williams policy, but now the Real Estate Commission says you have to turn your documents into the firm. And the obvious reason of that is so important is if there's any issues that come up and you have an agent or a buyer or seller calling the office and asking to speak with a broker in charge, you know, if you turn the documents in, Rob is going to have access to those documents and can take a look at it and get with you and take care of the issue. If it's not turned in, we're really at a loss, okay, and it makes us look kind of foolish. So please encourage your agents to turn things in a timely manner. You may not have everything, and that's okay. The perfect example is the septic permit. A septic permit sometimes takes time if the seller doesn't have it and you have to request it from the health department. It could take a week or so. That's okay. You just turn it in when you do have it. The other example, of course, is the professional services disclosure form. That is where the buyer is making you aware of services they want performed and vendors that they won't use. And so that is not something you have day one. Hey, that's not a problem. I'm okay with that. You can turn it in up to a week later. But I do pretty much put a deadline on that. So please know that if you have a buyer that you're working with, if you haven't presented that form to them and they haven't at least indicated the attorney and the lender and the basic items, who they're working with, and initialed or waived things like a survey or a water well test, you need to get that done within the first 7 days. It's really important. You can always change that form. You can add it. They can change their mind, and you could resubmit it. But unfortunately, I'm seeing some agents that don't turn that in until closing, and that's, again, not something I can approve even as a closed status until I see that Form 760 when it's for a buyer client. For a seller client, usually it's not required, because usually the seller is not instructing us to do anything. So that's your command file submission checklist, which we all have access to. It's under Office Documents in Command. Any questions on that? Yes, Daniel.
All right, so as you know, I run compliance on the buy side for about 10 agents. I do have some questions on the professional service disclosure.
Okay.
So many times, especially during a new construction or when we have a long closing or long due diligence period, vendors are chosen during that due diligence period, or in a new construction, we won't have an inspector or something chosen until, you know, the home is built, which could be up to 8 months.
I see where you're going with that. Not an issue. You know, as long as you send me a note, because obviously, you know, the volume of things in files that I look at, I may not always pick up that, oh, this is new construction. It hasn't even been built yet. In that case, you're perfectly correct. That could be 6 months down the road. I just see that it's a missing document, and if I don't see a note that it's a new construction, I click that missing tab, and then I return it. It's like, okay, where's the PSD?
Okay.
So I apologize. In that case, you are perfectly welcome to turn it in nearing the end of completion. It's the existing resale homes that we, obviously we've identified a lender, or if it's a cash sale, we've identified an attorney, we've identified a home inspector. Those are the things that I need to see on the PSD and turned in within 7 days or so. That makes sense?
For the new construction, yes. But say just on a long closing or a long due diligence period, because I have such high volume of professional service disclosures to submit, I find it like counterproductive to submit just with the lender and the attorney and then have them go back and recreate another one after the due diligence period is over? Can I submit once we've come to due diligence period and all inspections have been completed? Or chosen at least?
Well, I say no only because I'm not going to be able to take the time and look and make note of a due diligence date. 7 to 10 days, and it's not a hard line. But I look at the under contract date and I try to look and make sure it's not new construction. But again, it's the basic services. They should know within 7 to 10 days if they want a survey, if they want a home inspection, if they want a home warranty. And all you have to put is to be determined or to be arranged. I'm not requiring you guys to put the vendors in there if the sellers, or I'm sorry, if the buyers haven't selected that. So that's a good question and important to know. The vendors, I'm okay with that being left off because the buyers have not made that selection.
Okay.
But they have decided or should have decided by that time after discussions with the agent on the fact that, yes, I do need an attorney and I do need a lender and I do want a home inspection. Those are the things that I'm looking for.
So I can write TBD.
Yeah, absolutely. You can write to be determined or to be arranged. Because, the home warranty company, that may be the last thing the buyers choose. And I'm okay with that. It just, again, it just indicates that that discussion has been made and they've said yes or no to that.
Perfect. Okay, cool.
Good question. Thank you for that. This is a compliance flow chart. We won't spend a whole lot of time on this, but this is available, one of the many resources for new agents that we hand out. The compliance flow chart just again indicates that, new listings need to go and be submitted to our office. This does say within 48 hours. I'm going to defer to the 3 days. We don't expect agents to work and submit stuff on Saturday or Sunday. A lot of times you guys do. But, submit it at least within 3 business days to the firm as the real estate commission requirements are. And I'm good with that. Same thing for buyers under contract. Please make sure your agents know and pass the word to the newer agents. If you have Tom, for example, have a buyer under a buyer agency, if there's not a contract in place, you don't have to submit anything. Creating that opportunity is just is fine. You submit it when you have a contract in place, not necessarily by creating a buyer or seller opportunity when there's not a signed agreement. We good with that? Questions in class? Okay, I know I'm going fast, but I promise we'll go in more detail for you. The RESPA form, everybody, I think, for the most part, is now using our current form. And unfortunately, this does get revised from time to time if we have a new vendor. But since it is a federal disclosure, we have to make sure we use the current form. And when I return it and indicate that it's an old form, it's to protect the agent, it's to protect the firm. Because there have been lawsuits nationwide for failure to disclose business arrangements. Those are federal lawsuits. Hey, that could shut us down, okay? I'm not gonna let that happen. That's always gonna be a requirement and a requirement to use our current vendor form. It doesn't mean that those buyers or sellers have to use any of these vendors. It's just a disclosure. Everybody okay with that? Questions? Okay.
Is there a way, Terry, that we can be notified directly when one of these forms is updated? We had a lot of trouble in our office because we didn't know that the form had been updated. In fact, the form that was sent to us telling us that it was the updated one was the one dated 6/20. And so we had already had clients that had signed the one previous to that. Then we had the 6/20 sent to us. So then we had them sign that, and then things were still getting pushed back at us, and turned out that the 7/20 was actually the one we needed, but we had no notifications of that.
Well,
is there some way to try to prevent that lapse, that lapse from happening?
Right. And I apologize if someone sent you, or even if I sent you a form that was out of date. If I did, that I do make mistakes, and that one I will own. But as far as notification, I can't impress upon all of you is, even as admin, you have to read our weekly emails. They go out on Fridays. We try to not bombard agents and everyone with emails. And so unless the broker in charge, Rob, puts out a special email, it's going to be in the Friday updates. So if you read your Friday updates, it will make note of any new forms. And
So
Rob has already
how do I get my email added to that? Because I'm not even getting the Friday emails.
email Rachel and maybe just copy CC to please
Okay.
be added to that list. I know you guys sent out an email recently that
Yeah.
I forwarded to everyone. But again, my role is very limited. I don't do the admin part. I cannot add you to any type of email list. It has to be our front desk or MCA or somebody else other than myself to update that list. But yes, please let us know if you don't get those Friday emails. You, even as admins, you do need to be included on that. It's very, very important because we don't send out emails every day. We know we're too busy to read 100 emails. And so everything that's important, or if there's a new form, it will be included on that Friday update. And we've already made a change in a water, septic, and sewer disclosure, and that is already supposed to be in command. So good news for that, because I've gotten some confusion on this form. It did say septic sewer disclosure and revision date of August. I just spoke with Rob, and we've added the word water on here. The reason this form is important is we just are disclosing the fact it's either on city water or sewer, or it's on a septic system. So if you have this form filled out, in all cases when you have a listing, in all cases when you have a buyer, it's just, again, when there have been numerous lawsuits on septic issues. So if we disclose it up front while we're still in due diligence and get this form signed by the buyer, it just has a buyer agent signature and a buyer signature. That is what is most important. If you're the listing agent, obviously you're just getting it signed by the seller, because the seller is your client. We're not requiring you to go ask the buyer's agent to have his buyer sign it. Okay, it's for our benefit and your benefit as the agent. So whoever you're representing is the person that is signing this disclosure. And again, it pertains to water and sewer, or if it's a septic system, then of course you attach the septic permit. So if you attach the septic permit, again, that could be at a later date, because we're not going to have access to that day one unless the seller provides it to us. We have to request it from the health department. But day one, when we have a listing agreement signed, this should be part of the agent paperwork. So go ahead and get that signed. It is obviously reasonable to assume if you're in Highland Creek, for example, every home is on city water and sewer. We're not going to have to require you to wait for them to send you a copy of the water sewer bill. I'm not going to be that nitpicky. It'd be great to have that, but you can go ahead and sign that form and turn it in without the water bill when you're in a major neighborhood and community, and I'll be glad to approve it. Okay. Any questions on that? Do you like the fact that we added the word water?
I have a bunch of questions on that.
Okay, well, fire away. We've got 15
Okay.
minutes.
So when is it not needed? Say if it's an empty lot or a new construction that's not
It
built
is never
yet.
not needed. Danielle, thanks for that question, because it's an important question and good question. It's never not needed. This is straight from PJ's office due to the fact that we have had in the past numerous issues over water, septic, and sewer disclosure. So it doesn't matter if it's commercial, it doesn't matter if it's vacant. It is just like our RESPA form. We always need to disclose to the buyer if it's our client, or have the seller confirm whether we're on city, county, water, sewer, or if it's a private septic system.
Okay. But we only need the client that we're representing to sign it.
That's correct, right. It's our client and our agent's signature that we're looking for. If
Okay.
you're on the listing side, you're just signing on the listing side. If you're on the buying side, you're just signing on the buying side. It doesn't require both parties because
Okay.
it is an in-house form.
If we've already had a client sign this, since the new one has been released, do we need to have them re-sign the new
No,
disclosure, or is
no.
the other one okay?
It's the same form. We just went back to one that's a little more simple to read and
Okay.
added the word water on there. So I am not ever going to return this because it's an out-of-date form.
Okay.
It pretty much covers everything. I don't see that it ever changing. It's just telling us exactly what we've covered, whether it's
Okay.
on the water, sewer, public or community system, or whether it's a private well and septic. So,
Is there a specific way that you would like us to fill it out when it is an empty lot, not connected to city and with no septic yet?
I don't see where it really makes a difference. You can certainly write on here if you want to, anywhere on here that is a vacant lot. But even as we sell a vacant lot, it is important to disclose to our clients and have our clients confirm, is there a septic system on the property, or are there community or public water sewer connections? I mean, the buyers are going to want to know, and the sellers should know, and we should be able to verify. So even vacant land, that's a good question. Yes, we need to fill out this form. The last form that I'll address, and then I'll open it up to questions from everybody, is the dock pier disclosure. And of course, it only pertains to homes that have a dock pier, whether it's a waterfront property or if it's in a community property that has community boat slips, then I would certainly fill it out in that case as well. This does say private dock or pier. I would just write in community because it does require a little bit further investigation on the buying side. For example, in our neighborhood, the community docks are actually leased from Duke Power. It's a long-term lease, like a 20-year lease. So are they deeded? Well, that was the terminology that was given to me when I bought the property. And they are kind of deeded to the property, but they're also leased. So this is where we may want to do a little bit further investigation, consult with an attorney on how do we disclose that to our potential buyers, or how do we disclose that as a listing agent. I can't answer the legal question for that, but I'm merely pointing out that if we don't ask the questions, they could come back to haunt us later because we didn't. So that only dock pier disclosure only applies, of course, if there's a dock or pier accessible through the community or private dock or pier. Does that make sense? All right, questions just about anything.
I'm back again, Terry. I'm sorry.
No, you're good.
Are checks still mandatory? Because I've been running into a few firms that actually don't allow their agents to take photos of the checks because of wire fraud.
Yeah, another good question. No, they are not.
Okay, cool.
They are not mandatory for you to share. It is, as the Real Estate Commission rules, or you're supposed to make copies and retain copies of everything pertaining to the transaction, including emails and even text. How you do that is up to you. I always recommend a cloud service like Dropbox or Google Drive or whatever. But if you have a check given to you, you should make a copy of it, but you don't have to share it with me. because we don't want the risk of financial transaction theft. If you do make a copy of it and put it in your file, please black out on the copy the account number, because again, we don't need to see that. So it should say that checks are optional. If it doesn't, I apologize. Again, that's not something I have control over, but just know I'll never return a file because I don't see a copy of the check. We don't necessarily want to have that in online and risk any type of financial fraud. So yes, you're absolutely correct. We do not require copies of checks. We just require copies of page 15, which is a confirmation that the due diligence check and earnest money check has been received.
So normally we don't get the page 15 back for more than that 3-day window that's required to initially submit to compliance. So
Sure.
are you wanting me to submit everything that I have within that 3 days and then submit again once I've received page 15? Or is it okay
Yes.
as long as I know it's coming into the office to put it in command but not submit until I've received it and then submit it all at one time?
Yeah, well, I would love if everything was submitted at one time, because every time you guys make a change, I see it as a change, and I do have to go in and look at it and approve it.
Right.
So if you have 3 or 4
Well, me too.
documents-
I would love to submit it all at one time too. I just want to make sure if I'm outside of that 3-day window, is that okay? As long as I know I've received the contract within 3 days and I have the disclosures, but I just hold them in command until I have that page
It's not a
15 and then.
That's where I was going with that. I would love if we could do that, but no.
Okay.
The page 15, we may not get that for 6 or 7 days. It's required that the check be received within 5 business days. Hey, sometimes it may go to day 6 or day 7 if it's not overnighted. So you
Right.
can't turn it in until it's signed, and the attorney's not going to send it to you on a Saturday or Sunday. So yes, just please submit it when you have it. I'm never going to return a file because it's not in there day 1 or day 3. It just has to be in there before I can approve it to close. We
Okay.
need to see page 15 signed before closing. But yes, again, going back to the default real estate commission rules and regulations require us to turn everything into the firm within 3 days. And I can't waive that. Everything that you have, you turn in within 3 days. And any documents that are missing, you guys do a great job in making notes, waiting on the PSD, waiting on page 15. I love that. I wish everybody would do that. And that tells me that you know what you're missing, and that, yep, I'm going to take care of it as soon as I get it. That's all I ask. Just
Okay.
and continue to do that.
Okay.
Any questions in class? Okay. Kelly, any questions from you? Are you there?
Terry, I'm here. Thanks, Terry. I just wanted to take as much in as I could on this. Appreciate it.
Okay. Just put my glasses on and look at my notes here. Again, make sure that your agents, so that they get paid in a timely manner, do that commissions and offers tab. At the same time, is my suggestion when it's turned in for compliance review as under contract. Now, as admins, obviously, I don't know if you do that for the agents or if it's up to the agents, but I routinely see things that I've approved to close in full compliance on my end, but I see notes from CC asking agents to please go in and submit their commissions tab because the system does not allow her to create a check, issue a check or wire transfer until that's done. So I never know when it's done or when it's not done. But just to stress on your agents that, hey, that's important to them getting paid same day or next day.
So Terry, Danielle and I both do that for our agents,
Okay.
but we're not doing it at the time that we're initially submitting the file, simply because there's sometimes 100 changes to either the purchase price, the commission, something from the original date of the contract. And once we submit the commission tab, you cannot edit it. And it makes it, I feel, 10 times harder to communicate with CC after the fact that it's once it's submitted. So we're usually doing it. I do it a week prior to closing, and I think Danielle does the same within that week prior to closing. I don't know that either one of us have had an issue where we have not done it. I think it's always done before closing. But is
Okay.
that okay that we're waiting?
Well, I cannot answer for CC. That's the thing. You know, she asked that it be done within 48 hours. There is a form for a change in commission structure, whether the sales price has been changed or something has changed with the contract to cause the original offer and commissions tab to need to be corrected. And then you would just put it on that form and submit that form for compliance, and CC will see that and adjust everything accordingly. So I cannot change or comment on her requirements. Those are what they are.
Okay, so she wants it done within the first 48 hours?
That is correct.
Okay.
And I know I've got one that it's that the prices had to be reduced because it didn't appraise. So that is another piece of paper that I have to produce and forward into the file. But it is what it is.
What's the form called for the change?
I can't think of the exact wording, but it pertains to commission adjustment. That's
Okay.
not the wording on it. I don't have that form in front of me. But it's a change in commission, and it is under office documents where you would find your RESPAs and your file submission checklist and such.
Okay.
Hey guys, I've only got 3 minutes. Any other questions? Do you think this would be helpful to bring to your agents so they have a better understanding to make your job easier as admins?
Yes.
Well, I'll be happy to do that. Again, just communicate with me and let me know a date that works for you guys. And I'm happy to present this to teams and do another question and answer session. As always, please encourage if your agents have questions or if you guys have questions for me. I love your emails. Unfortunately, I cannot respond to emails with detailed information. Just too busy and 2 fingers and with typing skills. I can answer your question usually in a minute or less, where it would take me far longer to get back to you by an email. So you're not bothering me if you call me. Just if you have a question, just call me. And if I'm with a client or on the other line, I'll get back to you as quickly as I can. That's what I do. Guys, thank you again. I know Rob's got a class coming up here in just a minute, so I need to get off. Y'all have a great Friday and a wonderful weekend.
Thanks, Terry.
Thank you.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye-bye.
Thanks.
So I can log off now.
How do I leave this thing?
I can't get off.
Just leave. Singing in the rain.
Leave meeting.
It's a good class. Thanks, Terry.
You're very welcome. Thanks for participating. Stop sharing. I'm trying to end it here. There we go.